Shading round objects. In this little sequence, we are going to practice shading spheres. You can see in the picture on the left an assortment of basic forms with round or curved surfaces. On the right, you can see a teapot. This teapot also has round surfaces and is loosely composed of three basic round forms: a sphere, a cylinder, and a cone. Unlike with angular objects, where each plane has a distinct and different value, round objects have transitional values. The basic parts of shading transitional values on a curved surface are light, highlight, reflected light, shadow, core of shadow, and cast shadow. I'd like to guide you through an exercise of shading a sphere. Please draw along. It takes quite a while to successfully shade a round object, so be prepared to pause the video so you can finish each step. We begin by drawing a circle. You can take any round object and trace around it. A diameter of 2.5 to 3 inches will work well. I took my 4H pencil to lightly trace the outline of my sphere. Make sure to draw in your light source. Begin with your HB or 2HB pencil and lay in the general values of the sphere. You should start with the dark side opposite of the light, kind of like the dark side of the moon, and ease up as you get closer to the light source. Don't get too dark too soon, and make sure that you transition all the way to the lightest value closest to your light source. You will notice that I am turning the paper so it is easier to shade in the direction of the form. Keep in mind that your shading marks describe the three-dimensional form of the surface of your sphere. If you accidentally got too dark in the area closest to the light, you can use your eraser. An eraser also creates marks. Therefore, it is important that if you have to use your eraser, that you also erase in the direction of the form of your sphere. As you can see, I am shifting to my 4H pencil for the lighter values. I am erasing my outline so that the light will be all light into light, and open edge. Now it is time to add the cast shadow and the labels for the 6 parts of shading. By naming each label or each aspect when shading around a surface, you will be able to then exaggerate the values, and your sphere will gradually look more 3D as you keep working on it. So here's the cast shadow. The reflected light is caused by the light that is bouncing back from the surface of your sphere, or the surface that your sphere is sitting on. It is like a sliver opposite from the highlight. I use my eraser to lighten the area of the reflected light. The highlight is closest to your light source. If the highlight is not light enough, use your eraser to lighten the area of the highlight. So here with the light area, the shadow, and the darkest part of the shadow on the sphere, which is called the core of the shadow. After naming your 6 parts of shading, exaggerate them and add more value contrast. I begin with a 6B pencil and gradually keep adding contrast and exaggerating the 6 parts of shading. So here I'm drawing in the strong value, dark value of the cast shadow. I'm going to add the darker values in the darkest parts of my sphere. You can see a little bit of cross hatching here, going with the form. And you can see for the midtones, I'm going to shift back to my HB pencils to create smooth transitions from the darkest values to the lightest values. And then my 4H pencil, of course, for the very light values on my sphere. As you can see, my pencil wiggle very fast. It's an indication that I'm using a time-lapse video. I didn't want to bore you by having you watch too long. So you will probably have to stop your video right here and finish the drawing. You can look at the image on the left. And when you're ready, you can move on. So here, look for the lost edges and exaggerate them. Have the courage to lose them and get rid of a harsh outline. Your eye will complete the form when an edge looks lost. So you can see an open edge where it's light into light, close to the highlight. And then on the bottom of your sphere, you can see an open edge, dark into dark. Now we're going to use our white charcoal pencil and draw a sphere on black paper. Again, lightly trace your circle and draw in your light source. This time, I'm starting with the lightest part of my sphere, the highlight, and gradually loosen the pressure to create darker values. Again, you can see me turn my paper to make it easier to shade in the direction of my form. So I'm easing up here a little bit. I'm turning the paper. I'm loosening up my pressure to create lighter values. One thing you might want to be careful with is not to put your hand on top of your drawing, as it will smear the white charcoal. So if you need to have your hand on top of your drawing, put a little piece of paper underneath it. Lightly add the shape of the cast shadow and label the 6 parts of shading. Draw in your reflected light. And the reflected light here, you have to draw it in as it is going to be lighter than the darks in your dark part. After naming your 6 parts, here we go. After you're naming your 6 parts of shading, exaggerate them and add more value contrast. Use your eraser when areas need to be darkened. When using your eraser, go with the direction of your form. Add a table surface for your sphere to rest on to contrast the dark value of your cast shadow. Please photograph both your sphere drawings and submit them in the evaluation Google Doc. Make sure all parts are labeled.